So what juggling balls do I use? These ones. And the worst part is that's not even all of them. No, I don't have a problem, I just like juggling. Okay, let me make some space. So if you want the short version, I use Czekalki juggling balls. End of video. If you want to know why, then I'll explain now. First of all, this isn't a sponsored video. I haven't been asked to make this by anyone. These are my own opinions. I've just been asked a couple of times what balls I use, so I figured I'd just make a video so I can just point to it every time now. So these balls are Russians, which is just a hard outer shell with salt in the center. I'll not really get into the beanbag versus Russian debate, but here's like a super fast overview of why I prefer Russians. They don't weigh a lot, so you can practice for longer and throw higher with less effort. Because they're lighter, I also have more control over them. It's easier to move a light object than it is to move a heavy one. They glance off each other when they collide, rather than split apart or clump together like beanbags do. They have a consistent hard shell, which means that they don't change shape with every catch you make, like beanbags do. They're good for different techniques like stalls, foot juggling, or pinball, BBB. They're not so good for bouncing off body parts, but I don't really do this anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. So that's why I don't really use beanbags. So, specifically, why these Russians? So the company is run by Czekalki. I actually met him earlier this year at a convention in Poland, and he's a lovely guy and also an incredible juggler. I'll link to some of his videos so that you can see his style. And he just makes and distributes them all himself, which is always nice to see exactly where they're coming from. And he's also just launched his website, which is going to make showing all the different options much easier for me. So firstly I'll go over the pros about why I like these. For me, juggling should be fun. And these balls come in loads of different colors. Actually, hang on, let me grab all the different ones that I have. Look, I know it seems silly to have this many, but I'll explain. As I mentioned, it's about fun, and bright colors make my brain happy, so that's the main reason. You'll probably notice in a lot of my Instagram videos that you'll see a table full of these in the background, and I just pick up whatever color I like and juggle, because that's fun to me. I'll also say that this isn't all of them, these are just the ones that I have. I'll show like a little scroll of the website now so you can see like all these different colors that are available. And the reason that there's so many colors is because Jakub just mixes and makes the colors himself. So a lot of the time he's still creating new colors and making new stuff. Also, it's not just the outside color that can change. This is some new stuff that Jakub's been working with where he can color the sand itself. So this is salt, this is red, let me get it, I'll show you here, hang on. Hopefully you can see that this is actually just a transparent ball with red salt in it, which is very cool. I think that this is just a really cool effect whenever it's like flying through the air and you can see the inside is colorful but the outside isn't. And that's the same with some of these other ones where they can come transparent, or maybe here's a transparent white one that's a bit easier to see with. I just think they're very cool. Yeah, I don't know, it's great. But it's not just the colors. I think in general these are quite customizable because they have different sizes and weights. So the different sizes are 8 centimeters, 7 centimeters, and 6 centimeters. And the different weights are 80 grams, 70 grams, and 60 grams. But you can specifically ask for whatever combination you like. Personally, I use the 7 centimeters, 70 grams. Just kind of works for me. Norwichs used to be my everyday ball, but they are 75 millimeters. So coming down to the 70 millimeters just meant that for 6, 7, 8, 9 balls, I just had so much more space in the air where they weren't colliding. So it feels good. So that's sort of the main point that I'm trying to drive home, is the customizability of these. You can ask for them to be made however you like, and I'll be surprised if there's not a color combo that you like. And the second reason that I like them is for the price. In my opinion, these are great value for money. At the time of making this, they are €2 per ball. On the website there's also a lifetime guarantee, so if ever they break they'll just get replaced, which is amazing. So if we take the core concept of I like the ball that has a hard outer shell and sand in the middle, the fact that I can change everything else like size, weight, shape, color, and for a good price, what else do I need, right? Well, I'll tell you, because there are some things to be aware of. So I'll also note that my sample size for long-term use of juggling balls isn't that high. As I mentioned, I use Norwichs and then I've used these, so all I can really do is compare them to Norwichs that I've used before. I find these to be a little bit less durable than Norwichs. For reference, I've never had a Norwich shell break, except once in a park whenever a dog came up and took the ball and bit through it. And I was like, oh. But I'd ordered a spare, so I was all good. I was prepared for that loss. Otherwise, that's the only one that's ever broken. I've had a couple of these break around the seam in the mid. Actually, I'll show you. Hang on. Yeah, so these were the balls that I used a lot. As you can see, I've put some tape around the seam. So there is a seam that, oh, I'll get up and show. Oh, I've put the camera so far away. So I'm hoping you can tell on camera, but there is a seam that runs right through the middle, of course. Just that's how the ball is made. Maybe it's easier to see on this one. So my finger, yeah, here's the seam. And that is probably the weakest part of the ball. Sometimes that can break. So what I do is I've got some electrical tape that I just tape over it, and then it still works fine because it's just a ball. So because of that tape, I've never thrown away one of these balls. You just tape them and they're fine. But that is something to note. I know durability is an important factor for juggling props, so that's just something to be aware of. So this color was from the first set that I ever got, and out of this particular color that I used every day for years, 5 of them have split, and as such 5 of them have tape. That's just something to note, but I still use them. I appreciate that that can be a problem if you're using them for stage balls, so I would always say get more than you need. You may also notice that I have a separate bit of tape. So this is where one has previously broken down the seam, and then this is for the glue hole. That is something that has broken on Norwichs for me before as well. In my experience, the glue is always the first thing that goes, so I tend to just patch it up, sometimes even before the glue breaks, just because I know it will happen. For example, here's the first set of Norwichs that I ever got. I've taped it up because the glue goes for me. The shell's still good, but the glue just always goes, so I put that same electrical tape over it. There you can see the size difference as well between the two balls. So that is Norwich on the right and Czekalki on the left. So I know durability is a big factor for a lot of people in choosing a prop. It is for me as well, but the reason that I don't mind it so much is, as I mentioned before, the price is really good for these. And because they'll get replaced if they get broken, I don't see a reason not to. Especially if you get in bulk, which is what I did, which is why I have so many of them. I don't juggle all of these at once. I just like the different colors. But because I ordered in bulk, sometimes they're a little bit cheaper. There's a group on Facebook where you can check if he's ever running a deal of getting rid of loads of them for a slightly reduced price. But for me, that's why I'm happy enough with it, because I have so many to replace it with. And I don't know anywhere else that I can get a ball for this cheap that looks as nice and feels as nice. So that's just my personal preference though. I'm just making sure that it's out there because it is definitely a consideration. And the other thing to note is that it did take a little while for the shipping to get to me. My understanding is that it was sort of an issue at the border because of Brexit. I live in Northern Ireland and shipping here can sometimes be tough, so your mileage may vary, but it took a while for me to get these. That said, of course, if you ever see them at a convention, you can buy them then and there, problem solved. As I mentioned, this video is more to answer what balls I use and why right now, rather than making an actual critical review of both of these. One more thing to note that's different between the Norwich and the Czekalki is that the hole where the sand goes is a little bit inset. I've gotten used to it now, so I didn't even think about it, but I do remember at the start that was a weird feeling, just that there was a big divot there where the glue is, but I don't think about it now at all. It's just not a consideration. And some people have mentioned that the beveling where the logo is quite high. Again, it's not something that I really thought about, so it doesn't bother me and it does not affect my juggling. But that's just full disclosure, so you're not surprised if that's something that you notice whenever using them. So the sort of equation that I'm running in my head is I can get about 3 or 4 of these for every one of these. So even if one of these breaks, will 3 or 4 of these break before one of these breaks? Who knows? I think that's unlikely. And it also means that I get to play with different colors. So even if I order 4 of these and 2 of them break, I still have more. So that's pretty much it. So any questions, let me know. As I mentioned, this is just what I'm personally using at the minute, so I'm happy to help if you're thinking about switching or if you just like pretty colors like I do. Thanks for watching. Can he make it to the camera? How's he gonna stop the recording? That's the real question. 3, 4 in one hand. Oh no.